Okay, I'm back. Now this is part 2 of our series on rational emotive behavior therapy developed by Albert Ellis. And this is the therapy that I use the most when I'm working with clients. I do throw in a few other things here and there that I can get into at a later time. But for now, we're talking about REBT and what it's all about. So we're going to be looking at 4 things, okay? We're going to be looking at, we're going to be looking at the R, E, B, and T. The R stands for, let me get it straight, rational versus irrational thinking and or beliefs. And this is important because a lot of times people will go through different things. Let's say that they are depressed or anxious. Let's just take those two categories together because a lot of times depression and anxiety go hand in hand with each other. So let's take a look and see. When you're feeling depressed, there's a lot of emotions that are involved in there. We'll get into that more at a later presentation as well when we talk about depression. However, a brief overview, you're going to feel sadness, an overwhelming feeling of sadness, okay, that lingers, um, feeling blue. You're going to feel irritated, agitated. Um, when you're depressed, you're easily annoyed um, and can get easily frustrated and even angry. There's a lot of feelings that go on with depression. And the same thing with anxiety. Anxiety comes from fear. Fear um, can develop and become into panic, thus creating panic attacks or things like that. Um, when you're experiencing emotions and feelings, you want to take a look and see what's happening with those emotions and try to analyze, try to get at where is this coming from? Where's the root of this? Okay? And that leads us to the next part, which is the E, okay? Whoops. All right? And emotions. And I always ask my clients, what are the thoughts behind the feelings? Because the thoughts and or beliefs are going to tell us a lot about what's going on. And you want to be able to analyze your thinking process to see what's happening. Is it rational, makes common sense? Is it something that is true? Or is it irrational, something that does not make a lot of common sense or something that is false? A lot of my clients will tell me, oh, well, here are the thoughts behind my feelings, and they'll say things like, um, I think I'm ugly, I think I'm dumb, I think I'm stupid, I think um, some other really negative thoughts about themselves. And so I'll have them take a look and say, well, are these thoughts or beliefs rational? Do they make common sense? And are they really true? You know, are you really a stupid person? You know, you remember the film Forrest Gump where he says, you know, stupid is as stupid does? That's just so true. It's really bad to call yourself or anybody stupid because more than likely you're not. To be dumb or stupid, what does that mean? It means that you're unintelligent, that you have a low IQ, or you can't grasp concepts that other people with the same or similar IQ can grasp. That doesn't make any sense. If you are someone who has made it through even high school education, you are not stupid or dumb. You had what it takes to learn all of the basic skills that are necessary to survive in life. You learned how to read, how to write. You learned basic arithmetic and mathematics. You learned the basics of science. You learned, um, basic history and basic, um, you know, things like that. All of those skills you learned. And I don't care if you got D's when you were in school or you got straight A's. The thing is, you did what was necessary to pass through 12, or including kindergarten or preschool, 13 or 14 years of education, and you got a lot of knowledge and information inside of you. So if you were able to do all of that, how can you come to the conclusion that you're dumb or stupid? And if you went on to higher education like junior college or graduate school, it's completely irrational to come to the conclusion that you're dumb, stupid, unintelligent, that your thoughts about things don't matter, or that you are somebody who should be disregarded because, hey, you just are irrelevant when it comes to things because you're just not smart. That's not true. And yet, throughout our childhood, parents or relatives or maybe our peers called us dumb and stupid all of our young lives. And so we grew up and embraced that falsehood, that false belief that we're dumb or stupid, even though there was no real evidence to support it. You got A's in school or B's and C's. You passed your classes. You learned a whole lot of things. You are very smart. You have an IQ that is of the same as any other average person. How can you come to the conclusion that you're dumb or stupid? And yet people go around with that all of their lives. And so I'll have people examine those thoughts, examine those false beliefs. 90% of the time, the things that you believe are true about yourself are false. They're not based on facts. They're not based on anything that is evidence. And you want to look for evidence in things. I often will ask my clients, what evidence do you have to believe that's true? Or what evidence do you have to come to that conclusion that it's true? And there is no real evidence. The evidence is actually the opposite. And so you need to be able to recognize and realize that there are a lot of things that have happened to you in life that have gotten stuck in your subconscious mind. And I want to point this out. This is very, very important. I talk a lot about this to my clients, and it's an important concept to grasp. From the moment that your brain starts to get developed in the womb until the day and the second that you die, your mind, your brain is collecting all kinds of stimuli and gathering all kinds of information and knowledge. I don't have all the detailed information in front of me right now, but our brains function at a very high rate of speed, and we learn thousands, sometimes even tens or hundreds of thousands of bits of information, if you will, gets put into our brains and goes into our minds um, every minute, every minute, every minute, okay? And so we have all of these experiences of life, everything that you ever seen, smelled, touched, felt emotionally, um, everything you've experienced has all been stored away in your subconscious mind and put into files. I like to think of it as file cabinets, okay, inside of your mind, in your subconscious. And they get stored away over there, okay? And then when you have experiences in life that are similar, the next thing you know, you find yourself feeling emotions and maybe even having some body um, experiences in your body that are very similar to the way that you felt when you had the very first experience of that, which is similar but not the same as is, what you're experiencing at that moment in time. For example, I work with a lot of people that suffer through abuse. Okay, if you were abused as a child, then we'll just take simple verbal abuse. Okay, you were called names as a child, let's say, either by your peers or your parents or some other guardian or someone that was in your life that you perceived as having authority over you, or you perceived as a threat to you, or you perceived as someone that could hurt you or harm you in some way, so you became afraid. Okay, and so when that person was yelling at you or verbally insulting you, it created all kinds of emotional reactions inside of you, and sometimes even bodily reactions. Now, move forward into today when you're an adult in your 20s or 30s or 50s, and all of a sudden you're in a situation where you are having somebody verbally attack you, or they're raising their voice, and the next thing you know, you're feeling the same way. You're anxious, your stomach hurts, maybe you're getting an upset stomach, maybe you start to sweat, or other things are taking place in your body, okay? Because your subconscious mind, it doesn't know that that's something that happened to you 50 years ago. All it knows is, oh, this is the same as what happened then. And there's a good chance it isn't, you know? And you can have a different reaction to it. Here's another thing, and this is real important too. This comes up a lot. Sometimes things as subtle as, and this happens a lot, an odor or even a taste, especially an odor. Like, for example, let's say that your dad often yelled at you as a child and degraded you, and he wore a certain kind of cologne or had a certain kind of odor or smell to him. And it's in the future, and you're living in your present day life, and you're in a situation where a man walks by you with the same kind of cologne or has a similar odor or smell to him. Even though that person is doing absolutely nothing to you, you could start feeling scared, anxious, having all of those reactions that you were having way back when you were just a little kid and you were going through that experience with your father. Now, nothing bad, there's a lot of good fathers out there, but I'm just using that as an example. So even things like that can trigger emotions in us. And whenever you're having an emotional reaction to something, okay, an emotional reaction to something will, you need to take time, get away from it, sit down, and think about what were the thoughts that were behind those feelings. No matter what the feelings were, you write down the feelings, then you write down what were the thoughts behind those feelings. What was I thinking? Try your best to remember. Now, people will say, nothing came to me, or I only could think of one or two small things. If you keep practicing this technique, and you're going to have to learn how to write it down, you'll get better and better and better at it. And eventually you'll get to the point where you'll be able to say, okay, all right, I'm feeling anxious. What are my thoughts? My thoughts are, I'm afraid this person is going to hit me. I'm afraid that this person is going to scream at me. Um, I, I'm afraid this person hates me. Okay? Whatever those thoughts are, because the anxiety is happening, you can remember them and write them down later on when you get a chance. And then take a look and see, well, how rational is this? Is this based in fact? Is this based on something that's true? Or is it just something that I created in my own mind? If it is, then that means that's something that you can relate to and say, okay, this was a rational thought. I had every right to be afraid because of this. However, if you discover that it's not, then you can change your reaction to it. And that is where we get into the B, which is the behavior part, okay? The behavior part, okay? Behavior, actions, and reactions, okay? And this is what you can start to change. You can start to change the way that you behave and react towards things. You can start to recognize that, hey, wait a minute, that's not really happening now. I'm not a child anymore. I'm an adult. I don't have to be afraid. You can start to, through the analysis of your thoughts and thinking process and belief system, you can start to recognize and realize that I can change now. I can make a behavior change that will be a different reaction. A lot of times we do this with people that are trying to learn how to control their anger, okay? We'll have people write about, well, what was the stimulus that was causing you to feel angry? What were the feelings along with anger that you were experiencing? And what were the thoughts that were taking place? You might have to take time to practice this over and over again, but you have to slow down your thinking process and say, okay, several hundred or several thousand things all went through my mind within a split second or a few seconds. What were those things? What was I thinking? And at first it might not come to you, but take the time to continue thinking about it until you can come up with something, and then you write it down. And then you can start to analyze those thoughts. When you see how irrational those thoughts are, how they don't make any real common sense at all, or they're based on something that is not factual, something that is not true, something that's false, then you can change your reaction to it. You don't have to get angry. You can laugh it off. You can have a different reaction. Or if you get perturbed, frustrated, or what have you, annoyed, or whatever you might be experiencing, instead of hitting something or kicking something or doing something like that, you can say, okay, what's really going on with me right now? What are my thoughts? Is that really happening? Is that really true? Do I have to react with this punch or this kick or whatever it is that you have a tendency to do when you are losing control? And you can say, no, I don't have to. What can I do instead? Now, in later lessons, we're going to talk about how to be assertive. I'm going to teach assertiveness skills, which are really handy, because if you learn assertiveness skills, then if you are angry about something, you can learn how to, you can learn how to express that, okay, by being assertive instead of aggressive, or passive aggressive, or even passive. We're going to talk about those 4 ways that people react to things in a later segment. Getting back to this, you can make a choice. You can make a choice to change then your behavior. Okay? The last thing on this list is therapy, making a change, which is what we just talked about. Okay? It's important that when you set out in a counseling process with your counselor, that you create some kind of goals for yourself and objectives. And we're going to talk more about that too in a future video, but it's up to you to recognize and realize that when you go into this therapy session and you get to the point where you're past just the introductions and telling the counselor what the problem is and how horrible and blah blah blah, and they listen to you with empathy, okay, and all of that, when you get past those first couple 2-3 sessions of just explaining what's going on, that you're going to make a commitment to change. And that's what therapy is all about. Going in to talk to a counselor just so that you can get some acceptance or some empathy is perfectly okay, but you won't go far and you won't make a lot of changes in your life until you, okay, make a change, a conscious decision to change. And REBT will take you to that change. Okay, I think that's pretty good for now. Thank you. Bye-bye.